Well, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, again, what you guys did. And I didn't realize it till I got on the phone with Loretta Orr that there's some relationships there,
Oh
a
yeah.
cousin or something, but that was unrelated. It was just funny how that all managed to come out. Uh, but I want to talk to you a little bit about what you did. And I guess the first thing to do is start out kind of describing what you decided to do with your worship, moving it outdoor, and some of how you went about transitioning to outdoors and what you had to do to make that happen. So why don't you start with that, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we were caught off guard, just like every other church was when this happened. But I think one of the benefits that we had here is with our leadership and the ministry team. The question wasn't if we should meet, but how do we figure this out? And I think that mindset kind of drove us to finding a solution. And so we started off the first week. I think we just uploaded a sermon and we uploaded some song slides for people to look at and sing with their families by themselves. And then we kept looking for better ways to connect and better ways to get together. And so we ended up producing online services for the first few weeks, but we wanted to find a way to get our church body together in a way that was safe and followed the restrictions that we had up here. And at that time, we couldn't meet in groups larger than 10 here in Oregon. And so getting together was very difficult, even in small groups. So I had heard about FM transmitters. I'd seen an article somewhere where a church found an FM transmitter and they were parking outside and doing a service. And I thought, well, there's really no good reason we can't do that. And so I started doing some online searches, and I found the transmitters and I found how to do it. And we had a discussion with our leadership. One of the benefits is that we meet with our elders every week, even before all this. And so we have a habit of good, regular communication that doesn't require a big delay. And so we were able to meet and say, hey, let's do this. And the eldership was on board. They said, hey, if there's a way we can get together that's safe and allows us to assemble, let's do that. And so we did. And it was a struggle. It wasn't easy. I wasn't trained to do this. It took a lot of Google searches and a lot of YouTube videos to figure out how to produce our online services. And once we had that down, we decided we were going live. And so it was starting all over again with figuring out how to do that. But I think what got us there is the mindset of we have to figure out how, not if, we're gonna assemble as the church.
Let me ask you about you mentioned that you obviously kind of the leadership meetings were already in place, and that was a good thing. Were there any obstacles or hurdles that you realized as you started getting into this with your church in particular, and maybe with your leadership, that you realize, okay, we're going to have to address this as we begin to this transition to outside, or just as you continue changing through the pandemic? So, okay, these are some things about our church that we may need to talk about and that we need to talk to our people about. Anything like that came up?
Absolutely. There were a few things. The first thing that came up is that building an outside service requires equipment that was not even considered in our budget that had been finalized before all this, right? And so we had to figure out, how to reallocate our budget and figure those things out with going through the pandemic. Of course, we're not assembling, and we weren't sure what the budget was going to even look like in the future, but we knew we had to figure out how to purchase these things, and we were able to do that. So that was the first hurdle, was figuring out what to buy and how to buy it, and what was necessary versus what was nice to have, and so we made those decisions. But once we started meeting, then some of the hurdles that came pretty early were people's different comfort levels with showing up, right? We invited everybody to service, and the communication was, hey, everybody, come to service, tune in to our FM channel, watch services, but don't get out of your cars, right? Well, people, if they're there for service, they have to use the bathroom. So we had to figure out, okay, well, what's the process for that? And we had people cleaning bathrooms in between, and we came up with the rule, okay, you have to wear your mask if you're going to get out of your vehicle. And if you're going to fellowship with one another, we have another side of our parking lot that you can go to, and you can fellowship over there. Keep your distance, wear your mask, and those types of things. But also, and I think I've heard this from so many other churches, people have very strong opinions about whether they should wear a mask, whether they have to wear a mask, and what is actually necessary or right. And so there was this growing tension within the church of people that saying, this mask is crazy. I don't need to wear a mask. I'm 6 foot from you. And other people saying, well, I'm not going to show up if people aren't going to wear their mask and respect my space. These people are walking up to my doors. And so people had strong feelings on both sides. And so one of the things that we had to do was address that very directly from the pulpit. I preached a very direct sermon about coming out of Romans 14, about not passing judgment on other people, but we need to strive for unity, right? The idea is not to pass judgment or to tear each other down, but our goal should be making everybody as comfortable as possible to assemble. If that means wearing a mask, then that's a sacrifice that we have to make so that our brothers can come and be a part of service and not feel like they're gonna be made sick by somebody who's not respecting their space. And so that is a topic that we had to address very directly in a with love and grace, but we did have to address the attitudes of people that felt like they had the freedom to wear or to not wear a mask or to do what they needed to do, and made it about them. We had to say, hey, this isn't about you. This is about the people, the church as a whole, coming together in a way that's mutually edifying and beneficial.
I think the opinion factor seemed to rear its head, like you said, in many places. I know even, you know how opinionated South Texans are. So there was a lot of that, and churches had to deal with it differently. As you guys made those decisions, and how did you communicate both well, you said you already preached a sermon on that. So how did you communicate the changes as they were rolling out with the people in the congregation and maybe even in the community? As you said, okay, we are going to be open. You can drive up here. How'd you get that word out? And of course, how'd you get the word out to your people? Hey, this is what's going to happen. So if you could address those, that'd be a big help.
Yeah, so there were a few things that we had in place and put in place. One of those things was we had already started a big push for better connection with our church community through implementing CCB, Church Community Builder software, to where we could communicate with them regularly. And we had a big push of getting everybody's contact information, keeping that updated, having their email addresses and their phone numbers. And so luckily we had a deacon that was really making a big push for that. And it turned out to be helpful because we were able to send out a message very quickly. Either anybody in the leadership could send out a message very quickly to everybody in the congregation that way. And that was super helpful. But also our elders committed to calling every single member. They divided up all the members among the eldership, and they committed to calling every member to make sure that they were up to date and they were staying connected and they knew how to be connected. We had an elder who's been producing all of the services on CD and mailing it to members who just have no digital connection or ability to be here whatsoever, for shut-ins in those cases. So we have elders that were committed to ministering and shepherding the congregation in that way. And then we also used Facebook and YouTube. We stream live on Facebook and YouTube. And the minister staff started doing daily encouragements, which were also daily updates with, hey, this is what we're thinking, this is what we're doing, here's what's going on, and here's an encouragement. So we were producing those on YouTube and Facebook daily at first, and then it went to each one of us did one video a week, which was there's 3 of us that were doing the video, so 3 videos a week of daily of encouragements and updates about what's going on, and sharing those through CCB and on our YouTube and Facebook, and directing all of our members to that, and of course updating our website. And so through all that, we've been able to reach pretty much everybody. I don't think we've really had too many slip through the cracks, just because of the multiple approaches and the dedication, at least from the eldership, to make sure that nobody's left out.
When you started, other than Facebook and stuff, which obviously we're going to reach people directly, are there other avenues that you used for communicating with the community in general, trying to get word out, like I said, about the meetings? Or I also know y'all had kept your benevolence going, which was rather unusual. And so how did you keep communicating with the community about both services and the benevolence that you had, and talk a little bit about the benevolence.
Okay, yeah. So the Metro Church of Christ is known as the Church with the Heart. We are a church that has a heart for our community. There are a lot of homeless people in the Portland metro area, and a lot of families in need, especially with the pandemic starting. Many people were out of work, and so the need only grew. And so the question came up as to whether or not we should continue our Saturday breakfast, which has been going on for about 8 or 10 years now. Every Saturday, we offer a free breakfast to the community. They come in and they sit inside, they have breakfast, and we have volunteers that go and talk to the people, try to make connections, even share the gospel. We've done classes at different times and offered those types of things. But when we couldn't meet inside anymore, we thought, well, are we going to be able to do this? And then we also have a food pantry where we give out food every day of the week, every day except for Sunday. I mean, we don't turn people away on Sunday if they show up to services, but it's not a scheduled open time. So we thought, well, can we do this? And in talking with there's community leaders in the area that connect with the nonprofit organizations and the food pantries, and discussing it with them, they said, hey, not only is it okay, but we want we're asking you guys not to close, because if you guys stop feeding the community and those who are in need and they become malnourished, they're only more susceptible to this virus. And so they gave us some guidelines to follow. And so what we did is our Saturday breakfast became a to-go meal where we shared the meal with them. They came up to a window. The meal was given to them through the window, along with some information about our services and some pamphlets and other things as on a spiritual nature, right? And then our food pantry was done the same way, where people could come and to the window. So we communicated that with the community liaison that lets people know where they can come for food, as well as we even put out videos on our social media, which got some attention from the community. We actually had people we had never met, never been part of our congregation, had came, and we had a couple of people come and just give us $500. They said, hey, we like that you're still serving and helping people. Here's $500 toward what you need. And that was in response to one of our videos. And we had an 18-wheeler show up in our parking lot and give us 900 cartons of eggs to give to people. They were frozen eggs in like egg yolks in a carton that we were able to give to people. And so most of it was just through social media and word of mouth, and through the other sources. We're listed locally as a food pantry and a place for people to get food. And so just through our online presence, we were able to get the word out about, hey, we're still here, we're still open, and we're still serving people. And we've seen a big influx in people coming to be served.
It kind of sounds like the key to being, though this kind of goes against maybe our theme a little bit, but the key to being successful during a pandemic is to be successful before the pandemic. Be engaged, be connected, have that as part of your church's DNA, if you will, and it makes it much easier to respond when something unexpected happens. It sounds like,
yeah, I think you're right, because I mean, Metro before all this was not do we serve our community, but how. And so when challenge came, the question was still, it's not do we serve, but how. And so it was finding a way to serve rather than finding a way out. Right. And I think that's what makes the difference.
I think that when you said it, it's not if, but it's how. And I think that's a lot of churches kind of struggle with, well, are we going to do whatever it is? And many will end up saying, we just don't see how. But if that's not a question, then you just have to move forward directly. How much of what you've been doing do you expect to continue after this is over? Anything new that you've done that you plan on continuing after the virus is over, if it's ever over, I guess, but as things come back to some level of normalcy, are there things you learn from this that you're going to continue to use as you move forward?
Well, I think we're definitely past the waiting for things to go back to normal phase. If we were waiting on that, we wouldn't have done anything. And so as we come back together, we're actually planning to start in-person services in a couple of weeks because the restrictions have changed. We can have up to 50 people in a gathering. And the way that works is as long as we have different entrances with different bathrooms and paths that don't meet, we can have multiple groups. So our building will support 2 groups of 50 and a group of 25 to meet all those standards. So we can have 125 people in the building. But we're still going to be live streaming. That's one of the things that we weren't doing before and we didn't have the equipment for, but we're going to be live streaming our services. And we're actually still going to have our FM transmitter going because there's still people that we did a survey with our congregation, and there's people that 70% of our congregation are ready to get in the building and they're ready to follow all the mask and the social distancing and all that stuff to make that possible. But there was 30% that said, hey, we feel very vulnerable and we're still afraid to come into the building and we don't want to not serve those people. And they said, hey, we would still be happy to come and listen from the parking lot so we can still be with people, still see people. And so we are actually planning we're still going to be broadcasting through the FM transmitter for people that come into our parking lot. And we have the way the sun comes up on our building, we have a bright side and a dark side. And on the dark side, I think we're planning to actually project our services outside so that we can still have a place for those members, but not just those members. We're thinking evangelistically, right? We want a place where the community can still come and be a part of our services. And it's going to be, because we're pre-registering and we have more members that want to come into the building than we have spaces for with the allowances, it's going to be hard to have visitors coming into the building. We do have elders and deacons who have committed to say, hey, if we have visitors that want to come in, we will leave and go to the parking lot so that we can have visitors come in. So they've already planning for that. But also, if they're not comfortable coming in, we're going to be broadcasting outside is our goal. As you know, part of the reason for that transition out of the parking lot is because we get a lot of rain. We get a lot of rain and it gets really windy and really cold later into the year. And we're approaching our rainy season now. So we were figuring out not if, but how do we adjust? And so that's why we're adjusting to indoors, continuing to live stream. We're going to continue the encouragement videos. We've started to put our stuff on podcasts. And so we're finding more ways to connect digitally because one of the other fruits of this is we've had members of our community hear our stuff or see our videos, and we've had our members share videos with people they've invited to service that wouldn't come. So now they can just share our service videos. And we've actually baptized several people through that avenue, just because we have an online presence and we're producing this. It's reached people. When we look at the analytics, I mean, it's reached people all over the world. And it's just amazing how God has used a church that's said, we're not going to stop serving just because we have to figure out a new way to do it, but we're going to do it anyway. And I think God has used that in tremendous ways.
Tell me a little bit about the production process, I guess, when it sounds like y'all have multiple talk about a multimedia, right? You've got FM transmission, you've got live stream, you have all that going on. And you mentioned the equipment earlier before we started recording. What all had to happen to get you where you are right now with both training perhaps of volunteers and staff and engage, new people. There had to be a process involved in that. And how did that go for y'all? And just kind of describe it for us.
Well, I will say that we didn't have somebody that said, I know how to do all that stuff. And I didn't know how to do all that stuff. And so again, since the mindset was not if, but how, we just started with online searches of, okay, we looked at some models of what other churches had done, and we thought, okay, how do we figure this out? And so we just I started watching hours of YouTube videos. I spent an entire week just figuring out how to get this stuff done on top of writing a sermon, right? It's just, and so we just researched and we landed on, we use OBS as our production software as far as for live streaming. It's a free software you can get online. And so we found OBS and learned how to use it with YouTube videos. And we found cameras. I looked up videos on, okay, what kind of cameras would work so that we can have good quality video and services. And we found a video camera that worked, and we ended up finding there's an HDMI game card that we had to use to get the Canon video into our software. and it's called, the one we use, it's actually for gamers, but it's called an Elgato, and it's just a video card that takes the HDMI out from the video camera and turns it into something that the computer can display and use in the software to record. And so we're not recording with a webcam, we're using a good camera, but it converts it into a signal that the computer can use. And all that was just figuring out, answering the question of how, right? And so we started figuring out how to create our own videos for people to sing with, putting the audio with the slides and creating our own slide videos. And that was just, we tried several different models for that, but we found an easy way to do that in OBS and recording through OBS, and just watched a lot of YouTube videos on how to live stream and where to get started. And so it all started with we didn't know how to do it, but I searched and I figured out how to do it. And we were really blessed. One of the really big blessings we had is one of our young guys, he's mid-20s. He was laid off at the beginning of this from his job, but he was still getting unemployment. And so he started coming to the office and he said, hey, I just want a place to study the word. And can I be in here? I was like, hey, do you want to help? And he said, yeah. And so I started working with him from the beginning, and he came to the office 5 days a week without being paid. And he started working with us, and we started training him, and I trained him on how to do all the video editing, because I was running out of time. And so he started doing the video editing, and he started doing the software, and I trained him. And so he's taken on that ministry so that he's running with that. But now he was invited to come back to work. He actually turned down a very large offer to come back. They wanted to bring him in and promote him. And he said, no, I think I'm going to pursue ministry. And so now he's pursuing online studies through ministry, and he's being supported by members of our congregation and people he knows. And he's interning here with us. His name is Jordan Woodruff, and he is also helping us with our technology at the same time. So that was another awesome fruit that came out of it.
I think that's one of the things that everyone's discovering, is that there are some good things that are coming out of this. It's not all bad. The conditions may be bad, but the results are not necessarily all bad. So I think that's true with a lot of folks. On Sunday morning right now, and I guess has this changed, is how many people does it take you to get all this done on a Sunday morning? Y'all meet up there and get going tech wise and all the stuff that has to get done. About just roughly about how many does it take to get that done?
We have one tech guy that can run all the technology on a Sunday morning. It's not overcomplicated. It's just, once you learn how to plug everything in, the FM transmitters just does its own thing. It's just got to have the audio feed. And so we have two guys that come and help set everything up, and we have a backup guy. So we have two guys behind the technology desk at all times, just in case, we have an issue, we have somebody there to fix it or address whatever we need. And so we have two guys running that, another guy that is in charge of the cameras, of keeping the camera positioned properly and organizing speakers, telling them where to stand and when to talk as far as they come up to the microphone and do their prayer or whatever portion of service that they're doing. So there's three guys up front there, and then there's me as far as producing the service, and then we have another team of about 4 or 5 people that help people get parked, and so that we actually space out the cars and help everybody get parked, because our service is in our parking lot, but it doesn't, but the way the parking stripes are doesn't work for service, right? So we park people individually, and we give communion supplies to those who need it. We ask people to bring their communion supplies so that there's less chance of transmitting anything. But if they don't have it, we do have people with gloves and masks handing out individual communion cups to people. And so there's a crew of about 4 people that handles the parking lot of getting people situated and getting them their communion supplies. So altogether, there's probably less than 10 people involved in getting it all going.
That's good. Anything else you can think of right now that comes to mind as y'all have gone through this process? Something, other positives that have come out of it, or other things you've discovered about yourself, or maybe not yourself, but the church and leadership and those kinds of things?
I would say people need community. They need to come together. I think that's why God designed the church the way that He did. And we should not ask the question of if. We need to ask the question how, because there's lots of churches in the area that are still not meeting because they felt limited. And I think don't be afraid to reach out to churches that are being successful, because it's not like we're trying to be the next YouTube star, right? We're not trying to compete with other churches. I'm happy to equip any church that is teaching the truth and wants help to figure out how to reach their audience and how to reach their congregation. And so reach out for help, and don't be afraid of what you don't know, because I didn't know how to do any of this, but because we didn't ask if, but we asked how, we figured out how to do it. And all the resources are online. They're there for you. And there's ways to accomplish what you're trying to do. And so what I've learned is that the members are willing to help. They want to be a part of it. But at the same time, it's important that you guide not only the process, you need to guide the hearts and the attitudes of the people. As you bring them together, we have to constantly remind people of what's most important, because this doesn't feel like church used to feel. And people feel like, hey, this is different. Hey, this is not what it used to be. And that's true. But if we get stuck in what it used to be, we can't move forward to what it can be. And so we have to, I would encourage everybody to think about where your people are coming from, and I like to move forward. So I have to guard myself about being too harsh on people that are hesitant, but I have to remember they're coming from an area of true concern, and I need to encourage them and edify them and let people know that we are working together to glorify and to serve the Lord in all circumstances. And so making sure that you're bringing your congregation along with you and helping them to understand that they need to view this as the church working together to glorify God and to build community. And we shouldn't let any of this that's going on separate or break down our unity within the church. And so we've put a big focus on unity in all that we're doing, so that we are all moving forward together and not leaving anybody behind.
That's awesome. I think that's probably a priority that will keep you and other churches, like you said, together and working through this. Is we want to stay unified. We want to stay in community so that we can continue to grow. And so y'all think you're ready for the next pandemic now?
I don't know. I think, again, the question will always be how and not if,
right.
For us. And so I don't know what the next changes will have to be, but again, I can guarantee you that we won't stop serving God's people and reaching out to our community, because that's our mission.
You think this has encouraged people to do more? I mean, just like, hey, we can get through this. We can do just about anything. You think that's improved the attitude in general?
Yeah, there's been so much gratitude from our congregants, from our congregation, just saying, I didn't even know we were capable of doing this. Thank you guys for putting this together. It is so encouraging to see our church continuing to serve its people in our community. And so people have been emboldened and encouraged. We've had a huge response from our members continuing to give to the pantry with their time and with everything. And so they still see the things that we're doing, and they're realized, because now they can share these messages and share these videos and share the links. And we've had people invite family members into their home to watch service from their home. They wouldn't come into the church building before when they've asked, but they'll come to their home and watch services. So our congregation is saying, I can still evangelize, I can still be on mission, and they're seeing the light of what God is doing, and they're pursuing it. So absolutely, I think if we would have done nothing, people would have been even more depressed, and they would have not known what the church, or what God can do through His church when His church takes action. But because we took action, they're seeing the fruit, and we're seeing the fruit, and God is glorified, and that's what's most important.
That's great. I really appreciate you sharing all that, because that's, people need the encouragement. If not, they even more so than we need technical instruction. Sometimes we need the encouragement to know that if you make this investment, people are going to be blessed and the kingdom is going to grow. So thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate everything you said, and I'm going to let you go. And hopefully we'll have a chance for some Q&A during the live portion of this event later on.